Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is a recurring guest, Ty Givens. Hi, Ty.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. How's it going?
Good. I think it's been about almost 2 years now since our last recording.
Absolutely. And a lot of things happen. So I thought it would be a great idea for us to have another conversation so we can fill in our audience about what is happening in the life of Ty.
I am excited to share. So thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. All right. So Ty, first of all, the bio. So you are the founder and CEO of CX Collective, a powerhouse consultancy transforming how fast-growing companies build and scale customer support operations. With over 25 years of hands-on experience from the front lines of the C-suite, Ty is the go-to expert. So you are the go-to expert for turning chaotic support teams into strategic growth engines. You're on a mission to give CX leaders the tools, training, and confidence they should have gotten from day one.
Yes. That has been the focus this year for sure.
Good. Okay, so tell us a little bit more in terms of, listeners, maybe they didn't listen to our last episode, although we're going to include it in the show notes. So I definitely recommend to our audience to listen to it as well. Tell us about the CX Collective, about who are your clients, who do you serve, and how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been in business now almost 10 years, which is crazy to say, but I'm grateful for that. And we work up with startups and we also work with established companies. And typically what we do is we help them build CX support teams that are set up for scale. And that includes processes and that also includes technology. The CX world is just a little bit different. It's almost like a small business within a business. So the way that
let's define CX for our audience. So let's start with that.
Okay, so CX is customer experience. And a lot of times there's confusion between what CX is versus customer service and or support. Customer experience is, think of it as the umbrella, whereas the customer service piece sits under that umbrella. So it's really about how that customer engages with your company. And in some organizations, it might sit under marketing because it's a full scope. And then in some organizations, they rebrand customer service to customer experience and really empower that leader to define what that experience will be for the customer.
Okay, good. So what is it about customer experience that entrepreneurs or leaders of a company usually miss?
How complicated it can be to service a customer. And I think that at the end of the day, the idea is, hey, you're going to either answer a phone or you're going to reply to an email, and that's it, right? And then they'll end up getting sold on, different help desk products, a Gorgeous or a Zendesk or an Intercom. And it's now time to define what it means to do those things. And that's where the complication comes in. Because you have to define your brand voice. Who are you? Usually that's a persona in a company. Sometimes it's the founder and CEO. That's the voice that you might hear carried out. It could be the head of marketing, whatever that is, you have to define that voice for them. And then the next thing is, how are you going to engage with them? A lot of companies, especially early on, feel like, hey, I need to go broad and offer all these channels, not realizing that, phones are very expensive to staff and your customer might not even require that you do phones. Right. Or they'll staff phones and then they'll have that same person who's answering the call handling live chats. So there's just a miss in what it takes to actually execute. I think there's a lot of theory and ideas around supporting customers, but the proper operational aspect of it is just widely misunderstood.
Absolutely. So, Ty, tell us about the loop methodology that you developed.
Okay.
So leaders can actually have that training and go through the training.
Yeah, so I developed a methodology to help leaders learn as they go. And then I'll give you a little bit of background and I'll explain Loop. The background to that is there are tons of certification products out there. I'm not taking anything from that. I actually support it. I think people should do whatever it is that works best for them. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to create another product that was going to be about getting a certification that didn't actually increase your knowledge. So if you're putting letters at the end of your name, but you actually didn't get better at your job, I don't think that it really matters, especially if you paid $10K to do it. So that is why I said, no, I'm actually going to go a different route. And I'm going to do something that's very practical and something that is that people can apply. So with the loop method, the L in this one stands for learning the concept in plain language. I don't use jargon. I try to make things extremely clear. And the reason why I do that is because I speak in jargon. So when I work with new leaders, if we're talking about workforce management, and they say, hey, I'm trying to figure out how many people I need to hire, in my head, I'm going, oh, you want a capacity plan. But what they're really asking for is help me predict how many people, how much work we're going to get, and tell me how many people that I need to hire. Oh, that's a forecast and a capacity plan. So the idea is to introduce the concepts to the leader in a way that resonates with them in real life. The next thing we're doing is the O in loop, which is observe. So first you learn, then you observe. So we researched and we found case studies that users can actually read through to understand how other businesses might have utilized that concept or that idea and what the results of utilizing that was. So everyone loves Zappos. There are so many out there that we plug in and we're like, let's find something to help people really understand and resonate with what it means to do this thing and how it helps. Then after you go through that process, and this is all in the course, then you're going to own it. And owning it means we ask you probing questions that you're going to be answering in a playbook. So and we're helping you to apply these concepts to your real world. So you don't walk away from the training saying, okay, I just learned, what it means to do a workforce management process, but I have no idea where to start. I don't want that for you. What I actually want is, as you're going through in bits and pieces, we're asking you questions about how you can apply this in your real world. And then the next thing is prove. So what you'll do is you'll go through the course, and at the end, you get to download a playbook. Now you've answered all these questions and you had no idea that what you actually put together was a plan that you can use to actually implement the idea or the concept that you learned in the course. And this, I think, takes away that imposter syndrome, because now you're going into it like, not only do I know what that thing is, but I know how that thing applies to my job and to my company and to my team, and I know how to roll it out. So you're feeling much more confident as a leader talking to your leadership about, getting approvals to move forward.
Ty, this is fascinating. So what are some of the modules or some of the topics that leaders in this in the area of customer experience need to know that you cover in your courses?
Yes, so okay, see, my brain works faster than my mouth. I'm excited about this. You can probably tell.
Absolutely.
There's two parts. One is that I focused on the practical aspects of support leadership or customer experience leadership. And I focused on things that people kind of think they already know. I'll give you an example. When I was a new manager, I think I was 24 or 25 years old. My boss asked me, what should the service level be? Now, this is phone days where you actually, answered so many calls in, so many seconds. And at that time, I didn't feel comfortable or confident in saying, I don't know the answer to that. So I'm researching. And I couldn't give him an answer. And I felt like a failure. But the reality is the answer to that question is your service level should be what your customer wants it to be. And so what I should have done is conducted a study on customer patience to understand how long will customers wait online before they drop off. And then I would have had my answer, but I didn't have those skills. So the courses that I'm building are built to eliminate the imposter syndrome. If you're not sure what metrics you should be measuring, you can find out by channel. And you don't have to do everything that we're suggesting, but you have all of the information there to speak intelligently to it. So if your boss is saying to you, why are we abandoning so many chats? And you're not really sure, then we have a course on chat metrics. Go in there and find out why you're abandoning them. So we actually have courses that focus specifically on metric mastery, which covers the whole gamut. Then we go into individual channels from chat all the way to social media, because that's another one that's widely misunderstood. We also have a strategic playbook to introduce AI to a support team. That strategic playbook helps to reduce the concerns of your team on what it means to have AI come in and how it's going to fit into the support story. It also helps you to communicate up and out with how is this company going to leverage and utilize the AI product. And then I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but on the 25th of June, there will be two courses. One is focused on tagging. And that is another one that people just struggle with. What should I be tagging? How should I be tagging? How do I define the tags? We answer all of that for you. Again, it's a guideline. You take what
you're talking about tagging in social media.
No, actually in support channels. So like, let's say that people are contacting you and you're trying to figure out how to tell a data story to the rest of the company. We help you with that. We're also doing a big one on workforce management. Usually the courses are anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. Workforce management is my baby. That's how I grew up in support operations. So this course is super, super meaty on purpose. But my goal is for you to walk away and say, I now understand what it takes to predict the workload. And I know how to actually do at least a little bit of a calculation on staffing needs. That is the goal. And so we have different tracks for certification, but I just kind of want to explain a little bit about that, because the way that the courses are designed is that you should be able to go in and pick what you want and learn from it and leave the rest. You don't have to do everything unless you want to do everything. But the idea is that if you're going through and you've taken the metrics course, and then, you jump back in and you do workforce management, and then you did tagging, that's kind of like towards the end of the year, you're going to be really close to having all the courses that you need to certify. So I wanted it to be something that was naturally happening, where at the end you get the gold star instead of going for the gold star and not actually getting any of the meat and potatoes.
Makes sense. So when you map the customer experience, for a business, what are the usual or the most common areas that you touch?
Oh, okay. So we look a lot at their systems. Excuse me, something is developing. We look at their systems. The idea is to understand, one, what did you tell the customer that you would do for them, right? What are your policies? And then the next thing is, what did you tell your team that they could do for the customer outside of the policy that you set? And then the next thing is, how do your systems support what you told the agents that they could do? And then how do you know if you're doing that? So then now we're looking at the quality aspect, and we're looking at the feedback aspect. And then all of that stuff goes into reporting, right? And telling a story using your numbers and the data. We help build dashboards. And we have a course coming out on building dashboards. We help leaders define their workday and scope. And there's a course coming out on time management. So like everything that we do for our clients, we're plugging that into a course where it's like, hey, if you don't want to do a full engagement, but you want to learn how to do something, go for it. And then if you decide at the end that you want it customized for you, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. So what are the main KPIs or metrics that you look at to make sure that an organization is actually successful in terms of the clients, the customer experience?
We want to look at CSAT, obviously, because you want to hear what the customer's saying. We also want to look at the cost per contact. Excuse me, because those two, there's one more, and I'm drawing a blank, but there's one more. The idea with listening to what the customer is saying and then understanding what does it cost to service that customer, that's something that you would take to the board. It tells you everything, almost everything that you need to know about how the customers are experiencing your company.
But listening to the customer is not necessarily a metric. The metric will be customers that are speaking well or speaking not that well, right? I mean, because metric is something you want to measure. I mean, it's definitely important. It's data that you collect, but then you want to divide it into or organize it into some kind of a data. I mean, it's some kind of a number that you can then evaluate, right?
Yeah, and that's where the CSAT surveys come in. So it's usually post-contact. You can use NPS. That would be the third. So NPS, Net Promoter Score, that measures the entire experience with the company. It's not just about support. So it's basically it asks, how likely are you to recommend this company to a friend or family member? Because that's the best marketing that you can even get. I'll tell you that the detractors are, I think, 0 through 7, 0 through 6, 7 and 8. They're moot. They don't mean anything. But if you're a 9 or 2, you're a promoter. Right. And so companies want obviously more promoters, but you can see that the scale is skewed in a way that makes it a lot easier for you to have a low score. And that's because you need to be striving to deliver experiences that make people want to tell others about you. Mm-hmm. So that's one way. And then after you have an interaction with them, then the question is, how satisfied are you with the outcome of that particular engagement? CSAT can be hit or miss. And the reason is if a customer doesn't get what they want, they're less likely to give you a positive score, even if you followed the process and was very nice. So sometimes you'll see, how satisfied were you with, talking to Addie? And then they'll be like, not very satisfied at all, but Addie was great. Oh boy, right? It kind of is a little bit contradicting. I'm not very satisfied because Addie said that I couldn't get a refund, but that is the policy. So, but CSAT is a measurement. And then the other is the cost per contact. How much does it cost the business to actually operate and run in supporting those customers? You take those metrics to the board and you have a data story to tell with them, you're going to get a lot of wins. Early on in my career, I was very, very heavy on tactical metrics. So I would be like, we got, 10,000 contacts and we handled them in, on average in 30 seconds. And I was excited about that because one, those results were really good. But the part that I was missing was telling the story related to it and how the customers felt about it. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters the most.
It does. It absolutely, you're right. At the end of the day, that's what matters. Yeah. So you touched upon it a little bit, AI. That's a topic we're all trying to figure out. I mean, AI is here. We have to use it. What are some of the mistakes that you see business owners make or leaders make when trying to use AI in customer experience?
They think it's a problem solver, but it's actually a problem multiplier. So garbage in, garbage out. If your processes aren't set up properly, if you don't have things defined, AI is just going to work off of your chaos. And it's not going to actually make anything better. In fact, it's going to do things much faster and much worse. So I think that's one, is that thinking that it's going to just simply solve everything, or it's almost like a button push. It's not that way. There's a lot of thought that goes into setting up AI to actually deliver for you. I will say that in working with it, it is in some ways the best employee I've ever had. And then in other ways, it has exposed my opportunities in communication as well. Because you've seen that too?
I agree. Yeah, because you were spot on in terms of like AI is not, you can't, it's not going to be a solution if you just throw things at it and
Yeah.
you lose the responsibility. I think what it is, the future is where us as humans will have to increase our ability to think fast, plan, program, etc., and then use AI in order to execute. Because if the process is not correct, then the AI is just, as you said, it's going to be a bigger mess. We do have to have a specific process well-defined and all the workflows in place. So then you can integrate the AI and it can help you execute.
Absolutely. And then you need human eyes at the end of that to review what AI has put out. And it does expedite things in a significant way. I take nothing from that. But at the end of the day, you can't just put out what AI has suggested. And you have to review it. And so I think that that's another misconception, is that it's going to do everything and it's going to replace us all. And it's like, I don't think that it's going to replace us all in the ways that we think. I think that there will be some roles that are specifically logic based that it can replace if you program that logic properly into an AI space. But I think that at the end of the day, most people don't want to be yes, no button pushers. They actually want to think critically. And I think that AI is going to give them the ability to become critical thinkers and decision makers and, higher earners in the near future.
I agree with you. Ty, if people want to get a hold of you, they want to know more about your courses, they want to talk about, about the tools you provide and especially the help that you can give them, how can they get a hold of you?
So we have two websites. cxcollective.com is where you'll find everything you need to know about consulting. It will actually take you to CX Collective Advantage, which is all about the courses. So as long as you remember cxcollective.com, you are good to go. And I reply to emails. Add me on LinkedIn. I will engage with you. I'm trying to make my work about outreach as much as I can, because I really want feedback. And I also want to know, what do people want to learn how to do? Because if I know how to do it, I'm happy to build a course for you.
That's great. Fantastic. Well, Ty, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast again. That was a great conversation, and I'm sure our listeners learned a lot from it.
Thank you for having me. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.